Morning, all. All right, so first thing I should probably explain because I did basically bury these jerseys when they came out, and I'm not saying that I was wrong. This is hideous, but I do feel like when there's a bit of a black eye on the NHL that there might be a need for an ugly jersey and yellow on yellow. That qualifies to me as being kind of ugly. So yeah, I ended up getting two of them because again, I get an email from Ben with would you like a couple? I'm like, yeah, I'll take the yellow one. For when things are ugly like today, and I'll talk about. Although it's not as ugly as things can get for the NHL, but I do reserve the right to use this as sort of like just a heads up at the start of a video that something happened where the people are talking about the NHL and they're angry at the NHL. But we'll start off with some anger from last night. Brendan Dillon threw an illegal check to the head on Noel Acciari. It did get him kicked out of the game, and he's got a hearing today. So odds are he's going to be out for at least a game and maybe a couple. And my guess is it'll probably be a couple. Illegal check to the head penalties often bring about people saying that one player's taller than the other player, so it's hard not to hit him in the head. Um, Now, I've always said that as a smaller player, yes, there is some need for that smaller player to be aware at all times where those taller players are. But at the same time, in this situation, I think it was a valid game penalty last night. I think it's valid to have a suspension today. I don't think this is one of those ones where it's solely because one player is a lot taller than the other. So we'll see how many games he gets. My guess is two, but we'll see. Vlad Tarasenko changed his agent months ago. Remember, he wanted a deal. He didn't quite get the deal he wanted, so he switched his agents. He has switched agents again. Now, the agent he has now and the agency representing him represents a lot of other Ottawa Senators as well. So maybe it's a sign that he's been talking to guys on the team and they're like, hey, deal with my guy. This is for the best for you. But interestingly enough, we've got the trade deadline in roughly a month. He is a UFA on July the 1st. Clearly, the Ottawa Senators are not a playoff team. It's a $5 million cap hit for Tarasenko. He does have a full no trade clause. So he would have full say in where he would go in the event that the Ottawa Senators decided to shop him around, or in the event that he says, I think I'd like a chance to win a Stanley Cup this year. So we'll see what happens with Tarasenko, whether or not he stays in Ottawa, whether or not he gets traded. You just keep an eye on his contract status. If he remains, unsigned past July of this year, he probably gets moved. And having a new agent may very well be with that in mind, right? So the bit that people are talking about with the NHL today, and this is not a minor thing. So the NHL has all these partnerships with gambling sites now. And gambling ads are everywhere. I know they're everywhere. I know they're on this platform as well. You have gambling bots everywhere on Twitter as well, and I know there's bots everywhere on the internet right now. Just basically, sometimes it's a slush you have to dig through to find actual people. But what the NHL did today is they announced that they've gone through all of the games, and I'm not sure how they went through all of the games to find this data, and whether this was people rewatching games or if it was something to do with the player tracking. But they've reviewed and adjusted hit totals for the season, and it raises the hits for most players. I did see Jay Fresh post that Garnet Hathaway gains 43 hits. So where this comes in with the gambling sites is if you're gambling and you're a part of that, hits can be part of that. Hits can be part of what decides whether you win or lose. So these hit totals being changed has kind of left those that are gambling on the game kind of ticked off. Like, okay, wait, so those numbers were wrong and now you're fixing them. Now, there's been a debate about hitting for a very long time when it relates to National Hockey League teams. Namely, that some arenas you get hits a lot easier in than you do in others. The New York Islanders are renowned for the fact that hit totals are always really high for their team at home, and they're usually lower when they're on the road. So, what constitutes a hit in New York may not constitute a hit in Minnesota. Maybe in Buffalo, they don't count what they might in Vancouver. Like, it's all over the place. So hitting has never had a standard. What qualifies as a hit? And so I think with the NHL adjusting these totals, and I totally get why they look and they want the totals adjusted. We have talked about how hitting is dramatically down from last year, and it would appear that those counting the hits have not been counting them accurately, or they've had a higher bar where they've said, nah, that to me doesn't qualify as a hit. Um, yeah, so does this mean that going forward they're going to be counted correctly? Does this mean that later on we might see them adjusted again? And for people who've lost money gambling and maybe it was one hit or two hits that caused you to lose the bet that night, probably kind of ticked off right now. And so I'm seeing people tagging the service they go through for gambling with basically the message of, so does this change any of the bets that I've made this year? And I'm sure the gambling sites are saying no. So yeah, it is not a great look. It is again, it's an interesting stat to use is hits. I use hits here and there, but in general, yeah, what qualifies as a hit with one team may not qualify as a hit with another, and yeah, there should absolutely be a standard. I just don't know how you enforce that or how that standard is decided and how you get all 32 arenas to count them exactly the same. All right, I've seen a lot of this coming mostly out of the Oilers Vegas game last night, and I just want to say this on the channel here because I always see the argument over, well, your fan base is obnoxious. No, your fan base is obnoxious. Do you know who the real obnoxious fan base is? The easiest way to settle this is every single fan base can be obnoxious. All of them. There is no fan base that cannot be obnoxious. There's no such thing as a fan base where everybody's wonderful and fantastic, and winning brings out the obnoxious. So does losing, though. And what I get a kick out of is the people that will be saying, my team's the greatest in the world. They're awesome. They're on a big winning streak, or we defeated a team on a big winning streak. But then a couple weeks later, their teams, lost some games. They're like, so we're going to sell at the deadline or what? This team sucks. We're not winning anything this year. Those are the fans that are very much, and I've met a lot of them in person. These are real people that exist. That will from one game to the next decide we're winning the cup. Nope, we're absolute crap. We're winning the cup. Nope, we absolutely. That's why that moment in the Waterboy is so funny because there is the oh no we suck again. It's just that there are fans that are like that will go from we're the greatest in the world, we're gonna kill them to what happened? Oh no, this is it, it's over. And you're thinking to yourself, it's been 5 minutes since you said we're gonna win the cup. Will you make up your mind? So the obnoxiousness, it's in every fan base. So there you go. I wanted to settle that because I do see this and I know I always hear the Toronto. Toronto has the most fans, so you're going to have obnoxiousness in that group. It's going to seem worse than it might for others, but in general, when I talk to Toronto fans, I haven't come away with the idea that clearly these are the most obnoxious fans in the league. But anyways, I wanted to settle that since that debate seems to rage here and there, and I always see I can't believe how terrible this fan base is. Okay. Anyways, that being said, let's discuss the 3 games tonight. We have 2 games starting at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. We have a game starting at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, so stretched out. And so at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, we got the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Rangers. On December 30th, the Rangers win this matchup 5-1. The third and final matchup will be March the 14th. Tampa Bay's 27-18-5 overall. They're getting Chernak back and Sergachev activated off long-term injured reserve, so that's going to help their defense a lot. We'll see how the Rangers deal with that. The Rangers are 31-16-3. They're coming off that win against Colorado, so they should feel pretty good about themselves. Tampa Bay was one of the hottest teams in the league going into the All-Star break. Be interesting to see how that game turns out. Also at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, Dallas in against Toronto. Dallas won a game last night they really probably shouldn't have. Toronto coming off of a stinging loss against the New York Islanders, so we'll see how this one goes. October 26th in Dallas, Toronto wins 4-1. Dallas is 31-13-6, and again, after winning a game they shouldn't have last night, we'll see how they do tonight against a Toronto team that's 25-15-8, and Samsonov will be the starter for them tonight in the net. So Samsonov, it seems, is the starter right now. But again, that can change. It is Toronto. It can change quickly. And Jones is there. And, of course, as we've mentioned recently, Wall is nowhere near a return. So Samsonov and Jones are the tandem for a while yet. 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, we got the Minnesota Wild against the Chicago Blackhawks. This is the second of 3 meetings. On December 3rd, Minnesota won 4-1. They'll meet again April the 7th. Minnesota's 21-23-5. And they are nowhere near the playoff picture right now in the West. Chicago's 14-34-2. They're nowhere near the playoff picture in the West either, but they weren't expected to be either. Tyler Johnson returns for Chicago tonight, so we'll see how that helps them. Johnson's been good. I would not be all that surprised to see him maybe shopped at the deadline. I did see people saying, well, Chicago's got most of their players signed past this year. Doesn't necessarily mean you don't trade somebody. If you have a good cap hit on that player going forward, teams may very well be willing to pick up that cap hit. But Minnesota needs to get some wins strung together. They need that now. And a win over a Chicago team that should be vulnerable against Minnesota might help them out in that direction. But yeah, the picture's pretty bleak right now for the Minnesota Wild. Let me know your winners in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event that you haven't already hit those buttons. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.